What's up, Dub Nation? Let's talk about the latest preseason clash between the Warriors and the Lakers, or, as I like to call it, Round 2 of our October chess match with LeBron's squad. Now, I'm going to be real with you. Watching that game was frustrating. Not because the team didn't try, they did, but because you could see the potential bubbling under the surface, and yet, it just never broke through. That spark, that moment of ignition, it never came. And for a team with championship DNA, that kind of underwhelming effort, even in the preseason, leaves a bad taste. From the jump, it looked like we were about to see another classic Warriors comeback. There were flashes, energy, hustle, but as the game went on, you could tell something was off. The rotations were shaky, the chemistry wasn't quite there, and most importantly, the interior presence, or lack thereof, stood out like a sore thumb. And the guy I need to call out here is Quinton Post. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying the man had a terrible game. He hit some threes, 4 of them, I think, and showed that he can stretch the floor, which has value. But here's the issue. That's all he did. For a 7-footer, you expect more presence in the paint. You expect rim protection. You expect rebounds. Instead, we got a stretch big who didn't even attempt to impose himself inside. And I get the modern NBA, spacing is king. You want to give your slashers room to attack. Guys like DRAYMOND, KUMINGA, even Jimmy, they benefit when there's room to drive. But Post can't just camp out behind the arc and expect that to be enough. Especially not when someone like DeAndre Ayton is eating on the other end. Ayton absolutely dominated that matchup. And let's face it, if Post is struggling to handle Ayton in October, how's he going to fare against Jokic? Against Gobert? Against Anthony Davis in a 7-game series? There are levels to this, and right now, Post isn't there yet. And look, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The Warriors need to seriously think about how they're going to handle this center situation. Maybe it's time to use part of that trade exception. Go after someone like Andre Drummond, or wait it out and scoop up a veteran like Alex Len if he gets waived. We need another true big to rotate in, especially when Al Horford and Draymond are anchoring those small ball lineups. Post isn't a lost cause, but the championship window is narrow. There's no time to wait for development if the results aren't showing. But let's flip the script for a second, because while Post was underwhelming, there was one dude who absolutely surprised me, Brandon Podziemski. I've been tough on Pods before, you all know it. I didn't love his postseason last year. I was convinced he was trade bait. But credit where it's due. The kid hooped. I'm talking 23 points, 8 assists, 5 boards, and most importantly, confidence. He wasn't just out there putting up empty stats. He was controlling the tempo, making smart reads, cutting at the right times, and really feeding off Draymond's energy. You could see the chemistry forming. Draymond would direct him into the right spots, and Pods responded like a veteran. That's not something you expect from a guy this early in his career. And let me tell you, those instincts, they're not coachable. Either you have that feel for the game or you don't, and Pod showed he's starting to get it. He's not just a shooter anymore. He's developing into a legit 6th-man candidate, someone who can be trusted to run the second unit and maybe, just maybe, take over when the old guard starts to fade. Now, don't get too hyped. One great game doesn't erase a shaky resume, but it gives you something to build on, something to get excited about. If Pods keeps stringing together performances like this, he's going to force the coaching staff's hand. You can't leave production like that on the bench. And more importantly, you can't trade a guy who's finding ways to win. And speaking of guys who know how to win, how about Draymond Green? Look, the stat line won't blow you away. I think he had, 3 points, 2 boards, a couple of assists. Classic triple-single. But man, the impact was undeniable. From the first possession, you could tell who was in control. Draymond was barking out assignments, directing traffic, switching on defense like his life depended on it, and orchestrating the offense without even needing the ball in his hands. That's championship leadership right there. You give me a guy like that, even with no Steph, no Jimmy, no Horford, I still like our chances in most games. And that's exactly what happened. Despite missing the core stars, Draymond led a group of bench players, rotation hopefuls, and young guns, and they almost pulled it off. That comeback attempt wasn't fake. It was fueled by real grit, real hustle, and a belief that they could get it done. And if we're being honest, that attitude, That's more important than the win itself in preseason. But that brings me to another point. Preseason matters. It's not just about minutes and experimentation. It's about momentum. If you treat these games like glorified scrimmages, you're going to start the regular season flat. And the Warriors, a team with championship aspirations, can't afford that. You want to start hot, rattle off 5, 6, 7 straight wins to build a cushion? That starts now. That starts in the preseason. And that's why losses like this sting, even if they don't count in the standings. Guys like Jonathan Kuminga, who, by the way, had a decent game, need to understand that every possession is a chance to prove you belong. He's got the tools. He's got the body. But sometimes it feels like he's playing with the handbrake on. This was a game where the spotlight was his. No Steph. No Jimmy. No excuses. He should have owned this one. Instead, it was just okay. And just okay doesn't cut it when the expectations are sky high. Same goes for players like Pat Spencer, Buddy Hield, and Gary Payton too. They had their moments, no doubt. But moments don't win titles. Consistency does. Trayce Jackson-Davis is another name I've got to mention. The man quietly dropped double figures. He's not flashy, but he's effective, and that's the kind of guy you need on a championship roster. Someone who stays ready, plays within the system, and delivers when called upon. But again, it all comes back to this idea. Are we trying to develop players, or are we trying to win? Because the answer changes how you approach these games. If you're just trying to see what you have, sure, give everyone minutes. Let the young guys run wild. But if you're chasing banners, if this is really the last dance for some of these vets, you have to lock in now. You can't afford to wait until December to start taking things seriously. This is a team that's built to win now. Not tomorrow. Not next season. Right now. And if that's the mindset, then every game, preseason or not, has to be treated like a dress rehearsal for the playoffs. You need to know who you trust in crunch time. You need to know which lineups can get stops, which duos have chemistry, and which guys just aren't ready. Because come April, it's too late to find out. And for all the frustration from this game, there were silver linings. Pods played like a man on a mission. Draymond showed why he's still the heart and soul of this team. Trayce showed flashes. Even some of the fringe guys proved they could contribute in spurts. But that interior presence, that's the glaring hole. And if the front office doesn't address it soon, we might be looking at a repeat of last year's struggles. Now let's talk about the big picture here. Because for all the ups and downs of this preseason, one thing is becoming very clear. The Warriors are at crossroads. They're trying to balance two timelines that just don't naturally align. On one side, you've got championship vets like Steph, Draymond, and even Horford, who are in win-now mode. These are guys who've seen everything, done everything, and are running out of time to chase another ring. On the other side, you got a crop of young players, Pods, Kuminga, Jackson-Davis, Post, who are still learning the ropes. And the tension between those two realities? That's what we're seeing play out in these games. You can feel it when the second unit checks in. There's talent, no doubt. But there's also hesitation, uncertainty. And while that's normal for young players, it becomes a problem when your window to win is shrinking by the day. The Warriors don't have the luxury of a rebuild. They don't have time to wait for guys to figure it out. They need answers now. And every minute on the floor, especially in the preseason, has to be treated like a final exam. Who's ready? Who's just pretending? Take someone like Buddy Hield. He's a veteran. He knows how to score. He's played in big games before. But does he fit with this Warriors system? That's the question. Because here, it's not just about stats. It's about movement, spacing, switching on defense, reading the floor. The Warriors system demands high IQ and constant motion. If you can't keep up, you're a liability, no matter how many threes you can hit. The same goes for Gary Payton too. We know what he brings: defense, hustle, transition offense. But if his shot isn't falling, and if he's getting lost in half-court sets, then his value dips. And again, it's not about calling these guys out. It's about figuring out now, not later, who's going to be in that playoff rotation. Because that's what these games are really about. Not wins and losses, but clarity. And if this team is going to make a deep run, clarity needs to come fast. There's also the question of leadership. Draymond's doing his part, no doubt. But without Steph on the floor, who else is stepping up? Who's holding guys accountable during defensive breakdowns? who's calling out switches and fighting through screens. These are the little things that championship teams do without thinking. But when you've got a roster full of developing players, those instincts aren't there yet. And it's showing. Look at the body language after turnovers. Look at how guys react when the opposing team goes on a run. There's a moment of silence, a pause, like they're waiting for someone to take control. That's when you miss Steph's gravity. That's when you miss Jimmy's downhill pressure. That's when you realize how much work still needs to be done to get this team playoff ready. And this is why the front office has some serious decisions to make. They need to decide, are we building for the future, or are we all in on one last title run? Because if it's the latter, some of these young guys might need to be moved. Not because they don't have potential, but because the timeline just doesn't match. You can't develop and contend at the same time unless your young core is that good. And right now, they're just not there yet. That's what makes Podziemski's performance so important. It's not just about the stat line, it's about the message. He's showing that he can play winning basketball right now, that he belongs in those high-pressure moments, and that forces the coaching staff to take notice. Maybe he's not just a development project anymore. Maybe he's a key part of the rotation. That kind of shift can change everything. And for the rest of the young core, that has to be the blueprint. You want to be part of this? You want to earn minutes next to Steph and Draymond in real games that matter? Then you've got to prove it. Not in practice, not in potential, but in games like these. You got to play with urgency, with purpose. You've got to treat every possession like it could be your last on the floor. Because that's the level of intensity it takes to win a championship. That's the standard. Let's be real. We're not here to babysit development. We're not here to play nice and hand out participation trophies. This is the Warriors. This is a franchise with banners. And if you're on this roster, that means the expectation is clear: win. Find a way to contribute or get out of the way. There's no in-between anymore. And maybe that sounds harsh, but it's the truth. This season isn't about good vibes and growth. It's about legacy, about sending Steph, Draymond, maybe even Horford out on top. It's about closing this chapter with another parade. And for that to happen, every player on this roster has to buy in right now. So yeah, losing to the Lakers in the preseason doesn't ruin the season. It doesn't define anything yet, but it does highlight where the cracks are. It shows who's rising and who's falling behind. It shows who's ready to fight for a title and who's just happy to wear the jersey. And if the Warriors want to get back to the mountaintop, they've got to make that distinction early. That's why every rotation matters. Every substitution, every minute Steph and Draymond are on the bench is a chance for someone else to prove their value. And the guys who aren't making the most of it, they're riding their own ticket out of town. Because like I said before, this isn't a high school team where everyone gets to play. This is the big leagues, and the standard is winning. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Dubs updates. Let's keep going. A storm may be brewing inside the Golden State Warriors locker room. And this time, it's not about missed shots or defensive lapses. According to whispers around the team, Draymond Green reportedly exploded at Jonathan Kuminga during a recent practice, delivering what insiders are calling one of the most intense confrontations between the two since the young forward joined the team. Those close to the situation described the scene as heated, with Green unleashing a barrage of tough love, demanding that Kuminga finally turn his raw potential into consistent production. The outburst, sources say, was sparked by Green's frustration over Kuminga's perceived lack of focus and urgency in recent scrimmages. Draymond's message was clear. One person familiar with the team's dynamics said, "You're too talented to coast. This team needs you now, not in 3 years." This isn't the first time Green has publicly or privately challenged a teammate. His fiery leadership style has been both a cornerstone and a controversy throughout Golden State's dynastic run. But what makes this moment different is timing. With the Warriors facing questions about their aging core and uncertain future, the pressure on younger players like Kuminga to deliver has never been greater. Some inside the organization reportedly viewed Green's tirade as a wake-up call, while others worried it might further strain the already delicate relationship between the veteran enforcer and the 21-year-old rising star. Kuminga, who has shown flashes of brilliance but struggled with consistency, reportedly stayed quiet during the confrontation, but later responded on the court with a strong performance in the following session. Perhaps a sign that the message hit home. As always with the Warriors, passion runs deep, and the balance between competitiveness and chemistry remains fragile. Whether this latest blow-up becomes another footnote in the Green saga or the spark that pushes Kuminga to the next level could define Golden State season. For now, all we know is that tensions are high, voices were raised, and once again, Draymond Green refuses to let complacency take root in the Bay. Stay updated exclusively with the latest Dub Nation news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep getting daily updates on the Warriors. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Your input is essential for the Dubs community. Stay tuned for the next video.